The next lesson is going to be continued on festivals. This is going to be lesson 6 on festivals. Specifically, we're going to be looking at Cheshvan and Kislev. Cheshvan and Kislev. Now, following Sukkot and the conclusion of the months of Tishri, we enter into the months of Cheshvan and Kislev. Cheshvan contains no holidays, yet its relationship with Kislev is important for reasons that we'll see in just a moment. Cheshvan, or known as Mar Cheshvan, is at that second month of the year, and the 8th month overall is Cheshvan. Cheshvan is commonly referred to as Mar Cheshvan, which is literally meaning bitter Cheshvan. Now, we can ask this question: why is this month called bitter? Well, one reason is because it is the only month with no holiday. Another is that a number of tragic events happened to Israel in this month. For example, on the 5th of Cheshvan, the Chaldeans murdered the son of the king Tzedekah, blinding him and took him into captivity. On the 15th of Cheshvan, Yerovam bin Nevat aroused God's wrath against Israel. As we see, there are a lot of issues with this month. However, Mar may also refer to flood of Noah. According to most chronologists of the flood, the rains began around the 28th or 27th of Cheshvan. Curiously, Cheshvan is called Bul in Melachim 6:8. Many commentaries explain this term, Bul, as derived from the word Mabul, which means flood. Mar can also mean a drop of water, as seen from Isaiah 40, verse 15. Of course, Cheshvan is also the start of the rainy season in Israel, and Mar also means drop, or like drop of water, may be an indication of its quality. Let's look at Kislev. The month of Kislev follows Cheshvan, and Kislev is famously known for the holiday of Hanukkah, beginning on the 25th of Kislev. Hanukkah commemorates the Jewish victory over the Seleucid Greeks and the miracle wrought for Israel in their fight for religious freedom. There is a major historical event that occurred in Kislev, which is of extreme importance to the Noahites. The timeline of the flood is important to examine at this time. It is very difficult to pin down the exact chronology of the events of the flood. Nevertheless, most of the commentaries state that it begins in Cheshvan on around the 27th or 28th of the month, and the end of 1 year later, with Noah emerging from the ark on the 28th of Cheshvan. Upon Noah's exit from the ark, he had much to do, and Noah built an altar to God. He took from all of the pure animals and all of the pure fowl, and he sacrificed burnt offerings upon the altar. It was only after these offerings that God was appeased. And the Lord smelled the sweet savor, and the Lord said in his heart, I will not again curse the ground any more on account of man. For the thoughts of man's heart is evil from his youth. Neither will I again smite any more everything living as I have done. Upon making this decision, God blessed Noah and his family and struck a new covenant with mankind. And this is what it says. And God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. And the fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth and upon every fowl of the air and upon all that teems on the ground and upon all the fish of the sea. And to your hands are they delivered. Every moving thing that lives shall be for food for you, and the green herb have I given you all. At this point, God completed the commandment of the Noahide laws with the 7th and final commandment. Only flesh with its life thereof, which is the blood, therefore shall ye not eat. God then gave mankind a sign of his covenant. And God spoke to Noah and his sons with him, saying, as for me, behold, I establish my covenant with you and with your seed after you, and with every living creature that is with you, the fowl, the cattle, and every beast of the earth with you. Of all that go out of the ark, even every beast of the earth, I will establish my covenant with you. Neither shall all flesh be cut off any more by the waters of the flood, neither shall there again be a flood to destroy the earth. And God said, this is the token of the covenant which I make between me and you and every living creature that is with you for perpetual generations. I have set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be a token of a covenant between me and the earth, and it shall come to pass when I bring the clouds over the earth, and the bow is seen in the clouds, that I will remember my covenant which is between me and you, and every living creature of all flesh. And the waters shall no more become a flood to destroy all flesh, and the bow shall be in the cloud. And I will look upon it, that I may remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is upon the earth. And God said to Noah, this is the token of the covenant, which I have established between me and all the flesh that is upon the earth. When did this occur? According to most commentaries, it couldn't have been on the 28th of Cheshvan, the day that Noah emerged from the ark. The building of the ark and the preparation for the sacrifice would have taken at least a few days. Therefore, the covenant of the rainbow was most likely given on or shortly after the first day of Kislev. Now, let's examine a few curious things. The events surrounding Noah's exit from the ark are riddled with mysteries. Particularly striking is this passage. And the Lord smelled the sweet savor, and the Lord said in his heart, I shall not again curse the ground any more on account of man. For the thoughts of man's heart are evil from his youth. Neither will I again smite any more everything living as I have done. This passage seems to state that because man is inherently evil, he is culpable of his actions. At minimum, culpability for his actions is not at such a level as to warrant destruction of the earth. Yet, this cannot be correct understanding of this passage. Consider what is written before the flood. Let's look at this. And the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great upon the earth, and that every impulse of every thought of his heart was evil always. The evil in man's heart cannot be both for the reason for bringing the flood, as stated in the flood story and narrative, and the justification for never again bringing a flood, as stated after the flood. Now, the relationship of these two verses is one of the most difficult concepts to understand in the Torah, and many commentaries have wrestled with this over and over. And to be clear, there are two issues at play here. Number one, what does it mean that every impulse of the thoughts of his heart was evil always? Is man inherently evil? It is a difficult preposition to entertain in the light of everything else that we have learned. How about this? How do we resolve the first issue of this phrase, that is pre-flood, against the second, the post-flood phrase? A particularly attractive interpretation of these two questions is offered. Let's examine this. The Torah writes, and God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was tov me'od, very good. The Midrash explains, our Nachman bar Samuel bar Nachman said, in the name of Rav Shmuel bar Nachman, and behold, it was very good. This refers to the evil inclination. But is the evil inclination very good? If not, for the evil inclination, man would have never built a house, or take a wife, or reproduce, or conduct any business to do. Said Solomon, and I saw that all labor and all skillful enterprise spring from man's rivalry with his neighbor. Well, the Torah states that, quote, for the thoughts of man's heart are evil from his youth, and, quote, that every impulse of the thoughts of his heart are evil, always is referring to man's evil inclination, the Yetzer Hara. It's a good explanation, isn't it? Now, before the flood, the world used only the Yetzer Hara, according to this, that is, for evil. Its desire was only to be indulged and enjoyed. After the flood, though, when Noah offered the offerings to God, God saw that the Yetzer Hara was once again being used as a tool for good. This is why before the flood, God criticized man for his Yetzer Hara. After the flood, however, the reference to the desire of man's heart is actually in praise of man. What, though, does it mean that Noah, in offering the sacrifice, was using his Yetzer Hara for good? We'll discuss this further in our classes later on. Now, Let's talk about the meaning of the rainbow. We've seen this over and over in literature, according to Noahide studies literature. Unfortunately, it has been co-opted by a particular movement in the world, and maybe we should take it back as a pious and righteous thing. Let's examine the meaning. God's choice of a rainbow as the sign of his renewed covenant with man has been the subject of many interpretations, some of which are more fanciful and creative than others. And there is anthology of approaches of the classical scholars of the Torah. The Talmud Chagigah 16a says, anyone who does not care about his creator's honor, it would be merciful for him had he not been created. In other words, better off that the person was never created. Who is such a person? Rabbi Abba says, this is one who stares at a rainbow. As it says, like the appearance of a rainbow that will be in the clouds on a rainy day was the appearance of the brilliance around Ezekiel 1:28. That was the appearance of the similitude of God's honor. According to this Gemara, God's presence is manifested somehow in the appearance of a rainbow. Just as one may not stare at any manifestation of the Shekinah, that is the divine presence. Two, one may not stare at a rainbow. Did you know that? To do is to slight God's honor. It's like staring at a king. And even times throughout history, one would avert his eyes either to the ground or to the left or right to not stare at a king too long. Now, this passage also tells us that staring at a rainbow damages one's sight. That's very interesting. Bereshit Rabbah 35:2 and Kesubos 77b, when Eliyahu Hanavi was studying Torah with Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi, they encountered a difficulty in a statement of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the author of the Zohar. Since Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was no longer living, the two of them ascended to Gan Eden and asked Rabbi Shimon for clarification of his words. It states that Eliyahu approached Rabbi Shimon first. Rabbi Shimon asked, "Who is this with you?" Eliyahu Hanavi answered, Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi, one of the great ones of his generation. Rabbi Shimon turned to Rabbi Yehoshua and asked, "Has a rainbow ever been seen in your generation?" Rabbi Yehoshua answered, "Well, yes," to which Rabbi Shimon replied, "Well, if a rainbow has been seen in your generation, then are you not fit to learn from me?" The commentaries explained that the fact that the rainbow had appeared in Rabbi Yehoshua's generation indicated that his generation was worthy of destruction. Therefore, Rabbi Yehoshua had not the sufficient righteousness or purity to speak to the holy Rabbi Shimon. Now, the Gemara in Kesubos 77b states, however, tells us that a rainbow never appeared in the generation of Rabbi Yehoshua. Why then did Rabbi Yehoshua tell Rabbi Shimon that a rainbow had appeared? The Gemara explains that Rabbi Yehoshua did not want to be seen as haughty. Let's look at Rashi's commentary on Genesis 9:14. Now, based on the Midrash, Rashi explains that when God desired to bring punishment upon the earth, he placed the rainbow as a sign of the covenant, as a reminder that he will not destroy the world. Therefore, the appearance of the rainbow is not a good sign. Rather, it is a sign that things are not right between God and the world, and were it not for the covenant, God would again destroy the world. In fact, the Mishnah and Barua 15 states the most widely accepted interpretation of the Shulchan Aruch today, that if one sees a rainbow, even though it is something upon which we bless, one should not inform others because it's not a good sign. Very interesting. Now, let's see what Maimonides, or the Ramban, says. It says the rainbow appears like a bow without a string. Instead of aimed from heaven downwards, it is upturned away from the earth. This symbolizes that God does not hold destruction over the earth, which would include mankind. Furthermore, the unstrung bow is a sign of peace. The Ramban further writes that we see that rainbows are a natural phenomenon caused through water refraction through moisture. Therefore, they must have existed since the beginning of creation. It was only after the flood that a particular meaning was assigned to the rainbow. This is implied by the verse's wording, "I have set my rainbow," implying that the rainbow already existed. This is also the opinion of Rav Saadia Gaon. Now, the Ibn Ezra and Radak state the rainbow did not exist prior to the flood. Chazuni states the appearance of the opposite colors together symbolize the resolution of opposite ends. Blue against red, for example, symbolizes the resolution of fire and water, of mercy and harsh judgment. Rab Shimon Raphael Hirsch states a stunning and exceedingly deeper concept. He's from the 19th century, Judaism, offering the following interpretation of the rainbow. He states, perhaps the appearance of the rainbow's color is closest in meaning to the actual meaning of the rainbow than all these aforementioned interpretations. By it, our attention is repeatedly drawn to the fact that despite all the variations and the degrees of the development of mankind, God would never again decree the downfall of the entire human race. Rather, the differences and the varieties found among humanity would serve as the basis of mankind's gradual education toward its godly purpose. The rainbow is nothing other than a single pure ray of light broken and refracted into 7 degrees or 7 colors. From the red rays nearest the light to violet, the most distant from the light and the nearest to darkness. Yet from one to the other, are they not all but rays of light? And do they not all combine to form a single pure white ray? Could this not perhaps be the intended to say that the whole array of living creature, from Adam and the most alive, and whose name means red one, Adam, the nearest to God, all the way down to the lowliest, humble worm, in whom there is a living soul of flesh, and even Moreso, all of the variety and shades of humanity among the races of mankind, from the brilliant intellectual to those whom there are hardly a glimmer of spirituality, that God unites them all in one common bond of peace. All are fragments of one, that is, one life. All are refracted rays of one Spirit of God. It's not the lowest, darkest, most distant one, not still the Son of Light. Thus we see later on that our sages describe the different spiritual and moral degrees of the righteous, using the metaphor, degrees of light. From the brightest illuminating rays of the sun to the gleaming of the menorah in the temple, all is light. Yet it only appears different according to the differences of material. There are 7 groups among the righteous, and their faces shine like the sun, like the moon, like the fragment of lightning, like the stars, like the blossoms, and like the menorah in the holy temple. Now, it is important to note that all of the above interpretations embody that quality that we have seen many times in this course paradox. The rainbow, as a sign of peace, potential, and resolution, is also a sign and warning of displeasure. These apparent opposites both exist simultaneously. It's not one or the other, underscoring the complex relationship between God and man and his creation. God is both merciful Father and true judge, the immanent and the transcendent, the destroyer and creator, the giver of life and one who decrees death, the God of light, the dark, and all of the colors in between. Perhaps the expression of this complicated paradox is part of the full meaning of the rainbow. While the month of Kislev holds the Festival of Lights for Jews, for Noahides it includes the Festival of Colors, contemplation and celebration of the meaning of the Noahide covenant. Let's look at the Noahide covenant versus the Noahide laws. It is important to make distinctions here. We must take a careful distinction as to what the first of Kislev commemorates. It was on or about the first of Kislev that God gave man permission to eat meat, blessed Noah and his sons, and granted that he would no longer destroy the world on account of man. This is the main message commemorated on the first of Kislev. However, it should not be a commemoration of the giving of the Noahide laws. Even though the Noahide laws were completed on or modified in their final form, according to some at this time, their binding authority today is from Mount Sinai. We learned that in earlier lessons, not from the covenant with Noah. It is not appropriate to commemorate the first of Kislev as the time of the giving of the Noahide laws. That is, that honor belongs to Shavuot, the commemoration of the revelation at Sinai. Recall that Sinai is the basis for the modern observance of Noahide laws, not the Noahide covenant. Let's go back to the idea of the first of Kislev. It is an appropriate custom for Noahides, yet not an obligation, to acknowledge the first of Kislev as the day upon which the Noahic covenant was struck. Prayers should reflect this fact and should mention the rainbow as a sign of God's promise and covenant. They should also mention the hope that all men will return to God and will receive redemption. There should be a meat-centered communal meal on the first of Kislev, a big giant barbecue. Bring your Noahide friends over and have a giant barbecue with each other, commemorating the permission to eat meat. And we all love barbecues, don't we? In particular, communal barbecues in memory of the sacrifices that Noah offered are appropriate and, of course, fun. Of course, the Torah study should focus on the meaning of the covenant and God's promises. We're saying that if you really want to engage in this period of time, Kislev, what a great time to get with family and friends, your Noahide friends, and have a great barbecue, maybe even a time to share with your non-Noahide friends, to bring them over to a barbecue on that particular date and time period, and have a barbecue to take time to explain this wonderful covenant that we have with the Master of the universe, not to destroy the earth, and the ability to survive and to thrive as a human race. That concludes this class. We'll see you on the next one. Shalom.